Random Thoughts of Madmen. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Random Thoughts of Madmen. We're on Snapchat, RTOF Madmen, Instagram, Random Thoughts of Madmen. I think that's all of them, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Today we're just going to discuss a few different topics. I think the first thing we're going to do is name the doll. We got this doll over here. Push this button, Dylan. Oh, yes, we do. We asked some friends on Facebook just to post comments and stuff to see what you wanted to name him. So we went to the ball and we decided it was going to be Dumbledore. So that is the doll's name now. It will be Dumbledore. Mm-hmm. We're going to start off this week with a discussion about homelessness in America and everywhere, matter of fact, but America the main one, just because that's where we live. So back in the 60s, they shut down a lot of sanatoriums, and when Kennedy was in office, this is where I'm taking it from, like he started trying to make the Community Mental Health Act, I believe it was in the 60s, mm-hmm. where they let people stay out in the society, and then they just opened sanatoriums and stuff, and let them come in, and they treat them, then they let them go back out to the street. Treat and street, basically, if you want to call it that. But then Kennedy was killed before all that came through, and they only ended up opening about half of the sanatoriums, and I don't even think there's any open now.
No, there's not.
Very, very few if there is.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure they're all.
Mental health care in any state is very limited. So what are y'all's opinions on everything?
I was talking to one of my professors, which I'm in a mental health class right now for nursing school. And one of my professors, I asked her opinion on shutting down the sanatoriums because they used to be awful places. And I feel like if we redistributed our workforce and redid the system to where it would be a better environment for those people, because they definitely do need a lot of help and they do need a place to be to where they can be safe. But they also need to feel like they're still people, so they need to have a place. And she agreed that we should put money forth to opening state-run sanatoriums again. But it's just a money thing, and not everybody is going to be able to put their money towards it. And if you created a tax for it, a majority of the people wouldn't like that because they don't understand people like that on a personal level.
So do you think this would affect, from our discussion last week, how we kind of all agreed that we believe there should be a flat tax rate? I think a lot of our viewers also agreed on it. Do you think this would play into effect more of on our taxes? Because I personally feel like if we're adding a tax now after discussing that we needed a flat tax, I think that's just bumping it up and kind of killing the purpose of the whole flat tax.
I don't think they'll actually ever come out with a flat tax or lose too much money. But in the end, if you look at it, the way we were talking about how a millionaire pays the same as 10 million, however much money you got after a million, that they would actually be losing money if they don't raise it. But again, you know, the people in the office are getting kickbacks from other people to not do this. But the other problem is when they come out with Medicare and Medicaid, and that made it to where they would pay for you if you were like a member of society, but if you were in like a psychiatric facility, they wouldn't pay. So they encourage people to get discharged from the facilities and go out in the public, and then that's where a lot of it started. But mental health is like a touchy situation.
Yeah, it's I feel like a lot of people don't understand it very well, so they don't have a lot of input on it, and the little insight that they do have is just from Hollywood, so it's very overplayed. So like one of the things is like the case of Sybil, the woman with DID. She is a very rare case. It's 0.01% of the population. So Hollywood has played that up, so it's really like a scare tactic to make people afraid of our mental health care. And I don't know, it's just, I feel like if people would be more understanding and know what goes on behind the scenes, they would be more apt to letting our funds go towards that.
What's DID?
Dissociative identity disorder, and it's basically you have multiple personalities. And after that movie came out, there was a skyrocket of people who said they had it, but it's really not the case because it's so rare. It was just kind of like they already had psychological disorders, and they were just adding on to it, kind of like a hypochondriac.
But I think a lot of that plays into the fact that I think our society is very uneducated on a lot of things when it comes to the mental health. Not only do people think like they have bipolar, or what is the most common situation that mental health?
Depression, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, it's what am I thinking of? When they like got to have everything perfect.
That's OCD. Yeah, OCD.
Yeah, like I think a lot of people outplay the fact that they have OCD when in reality a lot of them don't even know what OCD is. I think everyone just assumes that it's having everything in a certain location at a certain time when there's mild, more to it.
There's mild and severe cases. So like if you have a mild case of OCD, you just want things to go a certain way. A lot of military people or like prisons or government-run agencies, they'll actually look at people who have a mild form of OCD, and they want you to be like that because you're more composed and you like things in a certain way. But it can get really severe to where it can hinder you. So, like, you could want to wash your hands 52 times in one day, and you can't get anything else done.
So, I was going to say, maybe that comes into effect on, like, why they closed down a lot of these places, because maybe a lot of more people were coming out at the time trying to claim that they had these disorders so they could get money from the government. Or maybe that's like what I'm thinking about today. A lot of people try to have false claims, and that causes a lot of grief between our government and our healthcare and our civilians, because the civilians, some aren't clearly telling the truth. They just want money from the government. So I think they play up to their conditions more than others that actually have the mental disorder. And so our government can't really tell who is who. So we tend to just close things down instead of actually taking the time. And I feel like that's what plays into people now being uneducated in it.
Well, I was going to say, I do have OCD, and it does sit for the military. It's about being late. It's my biggest pet peeve in the world. If you've ever relieved me at work and you're late, don't do it, because I'm going to get PO'd. Very mad. I just, in the Army, if you were late, you got in so much trouble, and it just ingrained it into my head not to be late. And it's like turned into more as I've gotten older. Like, whenever I grab a napkin, I have to grab 5 napkins. I don't know why. I know what I'm doing, but I still have to grab 5. I know it's stupid.
Yeah, that's the number you've decided is right for you.
I cannot grab 5, but if I do, that's all I can think about. I didn't grab 5 napkins. Mm-hmm. I have to check my alarm clock like 10 times. I don't know why. I'm so afraid to be late somewhere. Like, if you're not 15 minutes early, you're late.
Mm-hmm. Lombardi time.
See, we had that issue in the Navy a lot, but I was always on time. I never really worried about that. But I think the Navy downplayed a lot of the OCD and like being on time, because I remember getting relieved many times in my shifts. Like, nobody had a care in the world.
That's not how it was with us in the Army. You had to be there. Like, even sometimes if you were early, they would just mess with you and be like you were late, just to mess with you. It's really kind of wrong, but it really does some damage too in the long run. But they really don't care. I say they don't care because of the problems at the VA health centers. If you ever go in there, if you've ever been a patient, it's pretty horrible conditions. It's really not fair for these people to risk their lives and go into that facility and be treated like that, having to wait months for an appointment, things like that. It's just not right to do to soldiers who put their life on the line for the country. I don't believe in it.
No, I totally agree with that. There's so many stories, horror stories that I hear. Like, we have people coming to our hospital because they can't feel safe or trusted with the VA. My mother had a procedure done there and had to go back and get it redone probably 2 or 3 times. Mm-hmm. It was just a simple procedure that could have been done like one and done. But
so, playing devil's advocate here, I kind of feel like the bad usually shines through over all the good. So you could do something right 10 times and do it once wrong, and everybody's going to stick to that one wrong thing that you did. So I don't know if it's overplayed because of that reason, or if it's actually just a bad setting. But I mean, when I took my grandpa up there to have a surgery done this last week, I felt like we got really good care, and it was really quick.
Well, I mean, you're always going to have, a good experience somewhere too, where we could go in a place and have 2 totally different experiences there. I mean, there's going to be good and bad, but I think for the most part, everything I've heard, just at the main VA hospital is not good things. Like, there's a place in Norman, the VA hospital there, that people love. I mean, I don't know what they're doing different. I've never been there myself, so I couldn't tell you, but everybody seems to really love the VA in Norman.
Okay.
So we got a little off topic, but I'm going to touch back on homelessness. So Another thing is the opioid crisis that's currently going on. You know, there's drugs everywhere. These people go into the facilities and all that, they get clean. Then they come out and there's nowhere to go. There's no government housing. I'm sure there is some government housing, but not for everybody. You know, they go in there and they get clean, then they come out and they've burnt bridges or what for whatever reason. You know, a lot of them are on their own, and then there's nowhere to go. There's a place called Skid Row in California, and if you watch videos about it, it's just homeless people for miles and drugs running rampant, needles everywhere, and feces, everything.
Yeah, with the Skid Row, I think it's really, really funny that you bring that up. It's like there's needles everywhere, and in California, I feel like they don't have their priorities very set, and I feel that they kind of just throw you a loop. So I remember when that was a big issue, all of a sudden that came up was the straw epidemic, and no plastic straws. They just kind of threw you off topic, and I feel like our media does that with us a lot.
Now, for me to kind of go off of that, I was going to say, I think it is kind of sad that here in America, we're supposed to be this top-notch country, you know, where a lot of people want to come for freedom and to get away from their tragedies in their countries, but we have one of the largest homeless probably in the world is here in our home soil, and I think it's sad that our government is kind of almost forgetting about a lot of them, but in the sense it's not really forgetting, it's almost like they don't want to help anymore because they've already done their part where they've sent them the treatments and they... Cat!
Mr. Cat, by the way.
But I was saying is they sent them the treatments and they've sent them on their way, but yes, these people don't have anything because they've used everything that they had in their past lives to get the drugs, and that caused them to be put in the treatment in the first place. So I think it's easier for some of these people to just fall back into it and go back into the ways because it's essentially what they call home now because they don't have an old home. All they know is drugs, party.
Yeah, so, I mean, like, my thought that I just had would be, like, open a place, give them just a cot to sleep on, and then when they wake up, have them do productive things like go clean the highways or go have them work on projects and provide food and shelter for them, but don't provide them a paycheck so they don't have a way to get things like opioids or stuff like that. So they can't go back into it, and they just have a place to stay for that time being, and they have to work out of it.
But see, I think you're opening up a whole new can of worms at this point because you're essentially forcing people to work without getting paid, which in the long end is a sense of slavery.
You're getting food and shelter, which is two of your biggest needs in life. I would prefer to be giving people hand-ups instead of handouts. I feel like that's where a lot of our resources go.
But see, and then it just comes back to the term of like, we fight for the freedom. That's what our military is the freedom to do whatever you want, whether that's be productive in society or not be productive. And I think by forcing somebody to work for just food and water is...
I mean, we're not forcing them. It's an option. They can come and have a bed and food, but in the morning we'll have to get up and go do some resource work.
I think it's a good idea. I think we can really roll with it and go with it, but I think we also need to have some other things involved into it. Maybe potentially like job applications are thrown in there and like different, essentially schools.
Yeah, you could have like, social services start working with them and try to get them back on track.
Almost like a craftsman or journeyman license possibly. Like I know I'm just like, that's way out of it, yeah, but...
We're totally spitballing here.
We could essentially give them a way of getting a job together through the manual labor of working on the highways or helping the city out.
I agree with you. I mean, somebody's got to clean up the highways. I mean, we're paying the city workers and everything else to go out there and mow, pick up trash, whatever, people do the adopt a highway. I'd say just, give them a place to stay while they're up on their feet. And, as long as they're staying clean and sober, I mean, we should give people a chance. Like I said in the last video, we're giving away these billions of dollars to other countries. I'm all for helping somebody. I really am. Once we take care of people here, let's worry about everyone else. But, pay a minimum wage, something just to help them get started, to be able to get an apartment and get going. Education, I think all college should be free. I just think there's too much focus on college, and we have the student loan crisis and all this. It's out of control now.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of higher education should be free to the public, but I think once you get further into your degree and you're getting your actual degree, I think you should start having to front that money. Like, if we had all of our prerequisites become free, that way everybody could get a start and everybody could get a feel for what they want to do, and then from then on go with it.
Yeah, but see, I just think a lot of things are almost backwards in our country. And a lot of countries, college is free, and America is one of the few countries where college is a pretty pricey penny, honestly. And to be honest, I think that our education levels aren't even in the top 10 here in the country.
No, because they've ingrained it in everybody's head where you have to go to college. Now you have everybody flipping burgers at McDonald's with bachelor's degrees in business and everything else. It's a waste where we have all these VOTECs out. We need welders, we need plumbers, we need electricians, things like that. But everybody's just got it so dead set in their head that they need to go to college. You don't need to go to college. There are plenty of jobs out there without going to college.
Well, I think we did that to ourselves too. Like you were saying, a lot of families focused on being a doctor, being a lawyer, these high-paying jobs where you're in a comfort zone and you're not out in the element, and it essentially pushed our generation away from the hard labor jobs. So now we're falling behind, and a lot of these hard labor jobs are paying way more than what they were because they're so in need. Like,
yeah.
I think a mechanic is making way more on a journey license right now than your average student with an associate's or bachelor's.
Yeah, I think the average mechanic charges about $140 an hour for labor is something I read the other day. But I just think that's crazy. A lot of them will charge for a base hour when the job may only take 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It's these manual labor jobs. Like, when I was in the Navy, we had a machinist mate, which was essentially in charge of our ACs and our generators on board. And they get out after going to these schools, these AC tech schools or these cryotech schools that the Navy pays for free. They get out and they start making a buttload of money because it's a simple job of just going around and fixing an AC, but it's because people have become lazy in today's society. They want those comfort jobs. They want to stay inside.
That was my mistake in the military too. I went in and I did MLRS, which is multiple log rocket systems. I so wish I could have went back and went in the Air Force and did something that I could have transferred into civilian life, where I could have worked at Tinker or something. It would have been much smarter to do. And hindsight's always 20/20, but if you're going to join the military, I would highly suggest, that you're always going to need infantry people or whatever, but try to do something that you can do in the civilian life too.
Get a trade.
Exactly.
Definitely a trade.
Exactly.
I mean, I was an engineer in the Navy. I didn't enjoy my time that much, but I definitely have a lot more life skills and knowledge now towards engines and mechanic equipment that if I wanted to, I could probably go get an associate's right now in mechanical engineering.
What could you do with an associate's in mechanical engineering?
I'm not too sure, honestly. I haven't looked into it since I kind of dropped the whole engineering portion of my life behind. But, I mean, you further your career, you could work on cruise liners, airplanes, trains. I know that probably doesn't sound the smartest, but you're working on these school bus size engines and these turbines, and you're making a bunch of money, and you're getting free trips. Usually a lot of cruise lines will hire you, and you just your family gets free rides, and all you got to do is watch the engines and the boilers. And
sounds like a good deal.
Yeah.
Speaking about my Navy times, I kind of look back on when I was tobacco products were kind of going on the ship. We had dipping, smoking, and vaping, and they kind of did away with a lot of, I know smoking's been gone for a long time, so a lot of vaping was coming into play. And I think it's kind of crazy that within 4 years, of vaping becoming up to what it is, it's suddenly starting to get banned now. And I think the president's looking into that.
I think they're just banning the flavored vaping deal, the Juul pens, whatever. But do you know the tobacco company owns 35% of the vaping company deal? Juul's the major one, I believe. I could be wrong, but they went and they bought 35% of it, and they're just banning the flavored kinds because 6 people died from it. even though there's all these millions of people dying from smoking and everything else. But they get...
Yeah, I think that kind of takes us back to our media, kind of showing us what we want to see and making something itty-bitty gigantic. So, like, there may be 6 deaths with a vape and 1 million deaths, multiple millions of deaths due to smoking. But something to correlate that to would be like their AR-15s. They're trying to take those away, but handguns are what kill more people than assault-style rifles, as they like to call them.
I think we could go on the media for a long time on a lot of subjects they like try to hide from us and what they want us to know. I think Europe banned a lot of firearms a long time ago, and now their blunt weapon deaths have gone up through the roof since assault rifles and firearms have mainly been banned. I think it's kind of sneaky in a way for them if it's what they want. And it kind of brings up the point, I feel like, is someone paying the media to show us what we want? It almost kind of brings up, like, is there somebody in the background telling them what to show us? Because it doesn't make any sense. Like, the numbers don't add up. We have millions of people dying from smoking over the years. It's just kind of like alcohol. We have so many deaths and so many violence over it, and yet they just now started legalizing marijuana. It's kind of like vaping. We have 6 people die, which you could die from just walking out to your mailbox and getting hit by a car. But they want to start banning these vapes.
Yeah. I was reading a deal today that said the profit that the tobacco companies are making, like in 2015, I believe was the number, was like $65 billion. I believe that was after they paid all their fines they have to pay to everybody and everything else. $65 billion for 1 year. Of course, you realize how much money they're giving the government behind our backs and everything else to let them keep doing it. They want to ban stuff that, yet we have a product that, I mean, has been proven it causes cancer and everything else, not to mention its other stuff it does to you. I mean, but yet they let them keep doing it because of the money they're making off of it. It just goes to show you that everything revolves around money.
Yeah, it really does. And it's kind of sad to see that our world is run by that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of our country runs off of scare tactics. I worked for a company, and news stories would happen about this company a lot, and I got to watch a few of them. And when the news company would come, they would be interviewing somebody, and they would just tell the story how it went very plainly and just going along with it. And they would be like, let me stop you there. You have to make it more dramatic. You have to say, we were going to a life-threatening situation. Like, you were going somewhere. Oh, make it a life-threatening situation. It was really just, like, overdoing it.
It's all about views, which in the end, it comes back to money.
Almost sells.
Yeah.
Totally off subject. One of my hometowns got hit by a tornado when I was growing up, and that one home reconstruction show, not Home Improvement. That's with Tim Allen.
Tim Allen was at your house?
Nah. What is that other one where they come and like they build a house for the family and then they move that bus, that kind of thing? Yeah, we all know what I'm talking about, but we can't think of the name. I watched in person them film a scene 8 times, and all he did was shake wood chips out of his hand, and they wanted him every time to be more dramatic and to be more like in it. And all he was doing was shaking wood chips out of his hand onto the ground and talking about planting a baby tree, which he didn't even plant, by the way. They had about 100 workers planting these trees. I watched all of it happen. Not a single one of those people worked on that house. These were all like volunteer workers.
I think it's funny how the media runs the country and how they just do things that don't even make sense.
Yeah, it's all what the camera sees and what they want you to think. A lot of these people tune into these shows, these home-style shows on...
Yeah, I would watch that show because I wanted to see the family's reaction afterwards. I wanted to see their enjoyment and, like, how the house turned out. Because they'd usually add something cool. Like, I think there was, like, a football stadium in the back of one just to have it. Like, they had an extra acre, and they were like, cool, we'll give you a football field. Here's some soccer goals. Like, it was really cool to watch, and I enjoyed it a lot. I'm not saying, like, all media is bad because I do get enjoyment out of it. But I just think they overplay it, and I wish we were more plain people to where we would just show exactly what's happening.
And speaking about some good media for once, we got video games, something that brings a lot of positivity to a lot of people, including myself, which I spend endless and endless and endless hours of my life on a piece of plastic that will give me nothing more than entertainment. Yeah. I don't know how many times I've raged, smashed things and stuff over the simplest games. Like, let's be honest, like I've raged in Minecraft. Yeah. You literally pick a block up, put a block down. And I've had some bad moments with Minecraft, but
I've been there for a lot of those. I can attest.
TNT explodes, fire spreads on.
It's not even the TNT. It's more of like a creeper comes out behind you or a skeleton. We're getting into a lot of these details of.
My kids play it. One of their little jokes is they go to play and they'll be like, "It's fire spreading on. I'm not going to grief you. TNT explodes on," and it's just kind of like the joke. It's funny.
Yeah. But now, me and Tristan, we play a lot of titles together. That's pretty much our off time if we're not studying or I'm not watching my daughter is. Rainbow Six Siege, Apex I think is a big one out right now. Fortnite, which we don't really play anymore because we kind of moved on.
Everybody was kind of moving to PUBG, weren't they, or something like that?
PUBG was a big title back in the day. And I say back in the day, it's still going on, but it was more bigger about, I'd say, a year and a half ago. And then Fortnite came out and kind of stole the thunder because...
I don't want to say PUBG was the first Battle Royale, but because I don't think it was. But Fortnite kind of solidified that title and made it what it is. PUBG kind of made it a little bit mainstream, and then Fortnite blew it up. And a lot of people like playing Battle Royales now.
Yeah, I heard a lot about that ninja guy.
Yeah.
Whatever, playing the Fortnite. My kids all play it.
Oh, yeah. Now, PUBG, set the ground, the foundation for Battle Royales. It definitely wasn't the first, but it was the first major title to come out and, be a thing. And I think, actually, PUBG originated from H1Z1. So I take that back. H1Z1
I think H1Z1
was the platform for PUBG because the producer... that made the Battle Royale for H1Z1 made PUBG. And then that's how that own game. But Fortnite stole the thunder because I think a lot of people were missing out on PUBG was the updates, the graphics, and the gameplay. And Fortnite was coming out with this cartoony look, and I think that's what appealed to the younger generation a lot more.
What's funny is that's why I stopped playing Fortnite eventually is because they would do updates every single week, and it would change the game so drastically I could never get a feel for where I wanted to be, and I just stopped completely and now play a game called Apex Legends.
Didn't an asteroid hit it or something?
Yeah, it was supposed to hit a certain area of the map, and then all the fan base whined, and then they had it hit right next to it and destroy another little piece. But it was just big drama.
Well, speaking of multiplayer shooters, this game is what started it all, kids. This is James Bond on Nintendo 64. That's what we used to play back in the day. That's what started the whole four-person shooter. That was the first one. That game was awesome.
Oh, yeah. Although I've never played it, I've watched a lot of videos on it, and I really have a respect for it because it did solidify the multiplayer experience.
Many hours playing that game. Then, I guess when I got on Xbox Live, what was it, in 2009? Sorry, my phone's going off. In 2009, and we played a lot of the Medal of Honor, and then what else did we play? We played the Call of Duty World at War, and that's when the zombies first come out. And I used to play just the online deal, but my brother got me started playing the zombies, and we kept waiting for the maps, different ones to come out, and I remember, I think it was Verrückt, where you could do the glitch in front of the extra life deal or whatever, and you could get all the weapons. You could just keep going back to the boxes as many times, and that was awesome. Yeah. We got to level 68 one time, and we played for probably 8.5 hours straight, and I was like, I've had enough. This is enough of this.
On a later game, me and Dylan glitched into the side of the map, and we were able to kill zombies from inside our little spot, but they couldn't hit us. Mm-hmm. And I think we got to level 130.
It was something like that. It was the same Call of Duty Zombies, but it was the map where you're in a old farm town, but you're underground. Yeah. I think it was in. No, I think it came out in Black Ops 2. No. I think.
Yeah. It was pretty fun. We had a lot of fun with that. Although it was kind of boring after a while because you're just sitting on a wall. There's no fight.
Yeah. Well, when we got to level 68, the zombies were still there. We were just glitched where they couldn't move, and then the only way you could kill them was with the flamethrower. Like the ray gun wouldn't even kill him. You
Wow.
could shoot him 100 times that ray gun, it wouldn't kill him.
Dang.
Have to break out a flamethrower.
Yeah, and what's crazy is like we do these glitches and stuff, but there's actually players out there who have made it to I don't know what level, 200 something, 300. I don't know how high it goes, but they do this without glitches.
Yeah.
Like they know the ins and outs of all these games, all these maps, and it blows my mind because it just brings me to another point of the Fortnite, the recent World Cup. I know we're going back to that, but the winner was like a 16-year-old kid, $3 million.
Yeah, bugger.
And
he probably saw about 1.7 million of that after taxes.
Yeah.
yeah, but as a 16-year-old,
Yeah,
you best
I mean,
believe I'm walking into high school
It's a lot of
buying
money.
people like.
That's a lot of money. I mean, for anyone.
Yeah.
But Black Ops 4 kind of ruined it for me. I mean, I still played them a little bit. My kids really play them the most, but I always liked the campaign. So Black Ops 4 did not have a campaign, and that like ruined the whole game for me.
Yeah.
I will not buy the next one.
Yeah, no, that's kind of what did it for me too, because I saw, originally Black Ops was already failing me because they started coming out with the exoskeletons, the
Yeah.
exosuits, and once you start breaking mechanics of a basic first-person shooter, you start adding this futuristic stuff, then it's just not fun to me anymore.
Yeah, I think a first-person shooter me and Dylan really like is Rainbow Six Siege by Tom Clancy, and it's just really super realistic. I think it won most realistic first-person shooter like the last 2 years in a row, but it's just like one headshot, no matter what gun you have, kills you, and then every gun has a good amount of damage, and you can break walls. It's just a really fun game because there's no cartoonism or no like sci-fi about it. You're just guys running through. You have a team of 5, and like there's nothing that you can do that breaks physics.
Yeah, Tom Clancy comes out with a lot of series that are more based off of realism, and I think that goes after a different group of players and the realism aspect. They have the Tom Clancy, the Ghost Recon series. They have the Rainbow Six series, the Splinter Cell series come from Tom Clancy, and they have the Division, and they're all based off of realism. And one of their recent games that's coming out is a new addition to Ghost Recon is Breakpoint, and it picks up from Wildlands, which came out a couple years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I think. Mm-hmm. And you're essentially this ghost who's sent out to an island to investigate, and you have to eat, drink, sleep. I think you have to repair your wounds with like bandages that you find. Like bullets matter. Like the thing I like about Tom Clancy, and a lot of people don't think about it, like when you reload in a lot of those games, you lose the bullets if you didn't spend them, like if you didn't shoot them. It's not like Call of Duty where it just goes back magically into like a pouch.
That was the best part, was being able to keep all that ammo. Do y'all still play?
Pretty much every day.
What do y'all play on Xbox?
We play on PS4, and I've got a PC that I like to play on, but since a lot of my friends don't have those platforms, I play with PS4.
What are y'all's gamer tags?
Gamer tag is VA's finest ghost. So
VA's finest ghost, huh?
Feel free to add me in challenge.
I'm Butterbaps.
Butterbaps, where'd that come from?
He had a character on World of Warcraft a long time ago named Butterfaps, and I switched the name and made a character, and it's just stuck with me ever since.
Listen, that was a weird phase. There's nothing sexual behind it at all, I swear.
Well, I'm not on PS4, but I'm still on Xbox Live and Glacial Sword 78. When I was first started, we started making a name, and it like automatically went to Glacial Sword, how it like randomly generated, and I took that. I still got that account too, but it's not active.
Yeah, when I first started, I did start on Xbox 360. I actually started with a PS1, then Xbox 360, then the PS4, and when I started, my very first gamer tag was Deathstalker, and now I have a keyboard that was called the Deathstalker. That's a really cool keyboard. But I just think it's funny where you go when you're a little kid. Like, those are the names you come up with, and then later on in life you change it.
I still play my NES, man. I just beat Tyson last year. It took like 31 years to beat Mike Tyson for me, but I finally beat him. Yeah, I always play that old Nintendo, though. Super Punch-Out, regular Punch-Out, like Trojan, Mario.
You should look into a lot of these speedrunners. I think they hold a convention like every year for speedruns on these old games, and I think one of the world records was set recently for Punch-Out blindfolded, because I guess Mike Tyson, something in the game about his mechanics is weird. So it's like different almost every other time when you fight him. So it kind of made it a hard situation.
I think he learns how you fight, and then he can change his fighting style based on that. It was like one of the first bosses that learned how to do that.
We couldn't have been that much. That was old 4-bit Nintendo.
I know.
I watched those videos, really. The world record for Mario was like 4 minutes and something, which is just unbelievable.
And I think they got that down. I was going to say something about that. Like, I like to watch a lot of Mario videos. And if you watch the breakdown of those speedruns, they are pixel perfect. Like, they have to do things that are exactly pixel perfect.
I don't know about like Zelda. Zelda is the best game ever. I don't care what anybody says. I remember playing that. I remember getting it when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
Getting that gold case game and Excite Bike and Kung Fu.
See, in my mind, like their mind and their hand-eye coordination has to be perfect to do stuff like that. And I wonder what they could do, like real life wise. Like what jobs would they be seeking out to do that? Like I feel like a drone operator would be really good for them, but I don't know. I was just like in the mindset that you could do something better than video games with it.
I don't know when you're getting paid $3 million to play Fortnite.
Yeah, that's true.
If somebody paid me $3 million to play Zelda, I'll take it. Just so you know.
I'll take any. You pay me anything and I'll play a game.
What's y'all's favorite games? Zelda?
Yes.
Man.
What's your favorite game of all time?
I don't even have a favorite game. I bounce back and forth because so many games offer me so many different things that it's hard to tell.
I had a PS2 and a game called Dark Sector. And over the entirety of the game you morph, but you've got a glaive that you can throw, and you can take the perspective of the glaive and control it, and you're fighting Nazis, zombie Nazis. It was a super cool game, and it's very niche. It took me I played it a long time ago, and I lost the name of it, and I went through all the games released around that time later in life, probably 5 years later, and just scrolled through looking at all the titles, and I was like, yep, that's it, and played it through again.
I've got 2 regular Xbox games, and one of them's Dark Sector.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that.
I love Dark Sector.
Another good game is Oblivion for 360. The first time I got that game, it took me 6 months to beat it.
Wow.
I mean, 6 months. So now I can go through and if I really play it, I can beat it in about a week.
Yeah.
Speaking of Oblivion, here's kind of a funny story. The Skyrim, the second part to Oblivion, I remember beating that game probably within a week. You know, you're a kid, you got time off. I remember beating it pretty easily because in the game there's a thing called fast traveling, where if you're on one half of the map, I know Oblivion had it, you could just travel to a city and be done with it. Tristan, how long did it take you to beat Skyrim?
It took about 3 weeks, and I was playing, and I played that game very hard for about a month, and I was really good at it, but I didn't know you could fast travel. So I was walking everywhere in that game. I walked the entire map every single time, and on the very last thing, Dylan came over, and he was watching me play it, and I started to leave, and he was like, "Where are you going?" And I told him a place, and he was like, "Why don't you fast travel there?" And I was like, "What's fast traveling?" And he did it, and I was instantly there. I was so mad. It took me 10 times longer to do anything.
Oh, man. But when I say I beat the game, I went through and I did all the quests. Like all of them, like the Dark Brotherhood, the Thieves Guild, all of the Mages Guild, not just the main quest. If I just went through and I did the main quest, you can do that paintbrush glitch, or you can put these paintbrushes down and you can go on top of this building in the middle of the Imperial City and beat it in like a matter of minutes. I did the whole game.
That's kind of like Portal. It's like if you're a novice, it takes you about 3 weeks to do the playthrough, and if you're a pro, it takes you about 4 minutes and 30 seconds.
Man.
You know, probably just a solid game for me, I'd have to say, is World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
It's a game that I've spent probably 3 to 5 years of my life just playing the same game sun up to sundown on most of my days, because I think during the time for its time in my life, it had a lot to it. It had a lot of individuality in it. Like each class had a purpose, each player had its own thing about it, and which the other class couldn't have, and I like that in games.
Yeah, I played that game solidly for about 2 years, and there's a a thing in game where you're on a character, you can hit /played, and it shows you how long you've played on that one character. So if you have 5 different characters, they may all be different. On my main character, I would hit /play, and typically towards the end, at the end of it, I was hitting /played, and it said I had 5.5 months of in-game play. So out of 2 years, 5 months of sitting at a desk, unbroken time, like days. This was actual play time. 5 months within 2 years.
That's a lot of overtime.
That is a ton. And I was working 4 days a week at that time. So for those 3 days that I was off, I was just nonstop. And then as soon as I'd get off, I'd go home, hop on it. It was really an addiction, and I gained a lot of weight doing it.
I never played World of Warcraft. Never.
It was one of those things where like a lot of people made fun of it and didn't get into it, but it offered a lot for its time, and I think it died off eventually because just new things come out, people want something new.
Oh yeah, just me talking about it, like I really want to play it. I want to go back in, level 1 up from 1 to 90 again, and I'm sure they're way past that now. But it's just like a Coke addict just having a bottle of Coke on a table.
I remember like a bunch of people were like selling their people like such levels, and they'd sell them for like $100 or whatever.
It takes a lot of time to level through. I mean, with me and Dylan, it'd probably take us about a week to go
there's
from.
a lot of cheat codes now, or is it just ways to cheat?
There's not really ways to cheat in it because they have an active like community, like they are constantly working on it and stuff. But a big issue I think for that game was gold farming, and I'm honest to doing it myself. I spent like probably $40 of real life money to have some guy in China spawn in the game, give me like 500,000 gold, which probably wasn't even like originally part of the game. He probably coded it in and he gave it to me and then would disappear.
Yeah. As me, I'm very honest and hardworking here. My mount and go around. I was a miner, so I would go around picking things for hours. I'd just put on a good playlist, and for hours out of my day, I'd just be roaming around farming things.
Sounds boring.
It was fun for me. I'd put on Miley Cyrus, Wrecking Ball, and I would just go through.
I wouldn't admit that to people.
Hey, listen, it was a fun time, and it was all I did.
I think that's going to do it all for this episode. Next week is going to be all conspiracy theories. That's all we're going to talk about. It's just conspiracy theories. If you have any you want us to talk about, send us a message on Facebook, and we'll try to get to it.
Bill, are you in here with us?
And do some oddball conspiracy theories. I think it'd be fun just to see what all's out there.
Bill's here with us. It is decidedly so. So Bill is in the room with us right now, everyone. So
push Dumbledore's door. His button. He seems hot. Anyway, but thank y'all for watching. Be sure to check it next week. We appreciate all the support.